Hey there, I'm Caitlin, and I want to talk to you about the Elden Ring's introduction of characters. If you ever played a Dark Souls game, you probably know where I'm going with this, but hear me out. One of the biggest problems new Dungeon Masters can find is introducing characters in a way that doesn't feel like they're offloading their backstories on you, or being shoved in their face like, please, please, the DM worked really hard on me, please like me, that kind of way. It's a struggle, I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. So why Elden Ring? Well, long and short, I've obviously been playing it recently, if you've been paying attention to my Twitter, and one of the things that's become incredibly apparent is, in this harsh world, every character has a role to play. They have a piece of the story, but they also move on without you in some extent. They're almost ambient in a way. They do their own things, and you can get involved, but you don't have to. I'm going to play the introductions to Blade, or at least I think that's how you say it, in the background of this as an example. I want you to watch what's happening, but also consider it in the sense of a D&D game. Your players go to a scary forest and they hear the howling of a wolf. They cannot make sense of where it's coming, but it always seems to happen in this forest at night. Returning to camp, or the nearest city, perhaps they end up in a tavern whilst discussing it or simply buying drinks and someone talks about it. Mistwood, the Forest of the Howling. This is introducing a quest in a way that gets players interested. Not just because you're posting on a billboard, please help us, there's a werewolf nearby, or an NPC that's begging for aid, but because this is a point of interest you and your players thought about. They're wondering why you mentioned the howling or what it has to do with things around them. Now an NPC is giving the information that they want. In Elden Ring's case, it's a character that you've already got a bond with. In Kale, for example. Kale is a nomadic merchant and the first one that you should meet. He tells you precisely what to do to solve this howling and sends you back. Again, let's take this into D&D context. If we were to remove the quest that is playing in Elden Ring entirely and picture it as a D&D quest, then what you would have done is just set the players on a linear path to meet necessary NPCs that you've made, without really feeling like you've actually put them on that linear path. They simply followed a point of interest, heard more info, and are now going back to learn more and meet an apparent friend. This is stellar world building and storytelling, not only because it gives the players more interaction, but it encourages them to listen to the lore that you've created, to seek out smaller things and pay attention to them, because it seems to lead to something actually tangible. Even more so, let's say that, as happens in the Elden Ring quest, your proposed NPC has an enemy to defeat and needs their help. Better yet, perhaps you've introduced an incredibly tough creature to the wilderness and given them a scrap with it, a black dragon or an incredibly large troll. They then go through this whole business of slowly introducing this NPC who has a vendetta against the creature. Combined with the help of this NPC, they then easily dispatch the beast and reign triumphant. This is a style of questing you should absolutely steal for your games. I'm going to be doing it too, and you don't simply have to copy it out, cut and paste, but you can change the format of something and move it into something more like find something significant. Already known NPC mentions point of interest. Players go back on recommendation and meet source of interest, leading into something happens or they get some help. It's a really basic questing scenario that isn't just telling your players to go to X and do Y. It encourages them finding something as the initial start and makes them feel like they're the ones who are actually holding the reins in their adventure. Honestly guys, Elden Ring has a ton of great NPC interactions like this, and I think I'm going to do more videos on it in the future, how you could incorporate them into a D&D format. It really shows when you play a lot of Japanese based RPGs how their games draw influence from Dungeons and Dragons. Hope you find this to be an interesting point and it helps you out in your future games. If, like me, you've been enjoying the Elden Ring, let me know below. If you've been looking to put any of the awesome Elden Ring bosses in your own D&D games, just know that I've been keeping a collection of conversions of the Elden Ring bosses moved into 5e on my Patreon and my Twitter, so please check them out. And that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video.
Oh yeah. yes. I should say, if you venture north to Rea Lucaria and come across a venerable blacksmith who's a little on the large side, tell him I sent you, and he'll be sure to treat you right. I owe